Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Too Many Men podcast. My name is Alison Lucan. I'm playing hurt, friends, a little under the weather, not gonna lie, but never fear because we have support staff. We are a team, we get each other through. We had a good talk in the locker room before we came out on the ice. First and foremost, we are joined by the expert. If you aren't reading her Substack, you would know everything there is to know about the situation in Carolina and her takes on the East Coast playoff push, which we will get into in a little bit. It is the tremendously gorgeous Sara Sivian. Sara, how are you?
I'm feeling a little bit better than you, but you'd never know you were sick. You're such a pro.
Or just delusional? Who's to say? But someone who's not delusional is
Are
the
you sure?
person. I don't know. Someone who is not delusional, in my opinion, who is single-handedly going to push an agenda of changing the playoff rankings while rocking out the most incredible upcycled bags. I can't wait to reveal where two of them may have ended up out on the West Coast here in the near future. It is the Athletics. Shayna Goldman. Shayna, say hi.
Hi.
What's going on?
Just vibing.
I
I feel my
haven't,
brain cells like depleting, but I'm good.
but your graphics are on point.
Listen, I'm trying. I think that there's so much like merit to like talking to someone else about that, right? Like and like playing off of other people and be like, does this look okay? Does this pass the vibe check? And then going from there, like, feedback, getting ideas, make them
See,
clean.
it's the year of our Lord 2025. Times New Roman is dead to us. Here we go. All right. Sorry.
I can't deal with it. Get me nothing with the serif, please.
Sara, save us. What time is it?
Oh my gosh, it's time for Bit O. Bit O news.
What delivery we have there. I love it so much. We have got news from all over the league, some fresher, some a little bit past since we focused on the trade deadline and then took a week to regroup ourselves. Let's start with something here. And actually, we had the opportunity to talk about some of this yesterday on our pregame show here in Seattle, just because Piper Shaw did a tremendous feature on mental health from the goaltender's perspective here out in Seattle. And that is another goaltender, Connor Ingram, announced that he is going into the Players Assistance Program. He had a really eloquent statement put out dealing with grief with the loss of his mother earlier this year. And I know every time we see this, I love seeing players feeling more and more supported and comfortable sharing what they're dealing with and sharing their stories and making it okay to treat your mental health just like you would treat your physical health. Sara, there's this great thing going on now too where Utah fans are writing cards and creating this whole movement in support of Connor Ingram while he's away from the Utah Clubbers. Your thoughts?
It goes to show sometimes it feels like there's like a weight on your shoulders about maybe something you're going through that you're not telling people. And even though it's scary to maybe talk about it, I always hope when people see situations like this with a professional athlete coming forward and everybody rallying. Of course, there's people that suck, but that these days is everywhere, and there's more support, and the support can matter more to you than you think. So he's always been honest about having OCD, and I've loved the transparency, and I love that the way he said in his statement that yes, this is a great tool for players that are dealing with substance abuse, but also I want to highlight the mental health facilities and resources that they have. So I think obviously, while you look at the increasing amount of players maybe getting help, it's not a troubling thing. It means that it's a good thing that players are feeling like they can get help and that the program is helping.
And Shayna, I know, like to Sarah's point, it used to be back in the day that you would hear a player was in the player assistance program and we spoke nothing of it. And now just to have it be like, hey, I'm using this resource to take care of myself. Like, what a welcome change is this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a reminder of these players are human, which I think is very easy to forget. Like, you're not seeing their faces when they play, or like you're watching them and it's like they're a big time hockey player. What do they have to worry about? But it's a reminder that they're human. And then when they express what's going on, it's totally different. You don't need
rampant speculation, which is not good for anybody, right? It's not good for the player going through. It's not good for the team around him. It's not good for fans to do it. And a player doesn't have to always be this open, but it's refreshing when they are because it's just a reminder of like, hey, we're all human. We all go through shit and we all have to deal with it in whatever way it works.
Well, let's stick with goaltenders and go to something perhaps not as meaningful, but meaningful to their pocketbooks, and that is goaltender signings. We have two. I'll let you talk about one, both, or neither, depending on if you care, Sarah. Starting first with Kevin Lankinen, the player who was kind of a last minute, I guess we have to sign him addition to Vancouver at the start of the season, has now been their lifeline in net because, Sarah, as you first reported last May, Thatcher Demko dealing with injuries yet again, still. So Kevin Lankinen signs 5 years at 4.5, and Aiden Hill signs 6 years at 6.25 in Vegas. Which, if either, intrigue you or do both turn your head?
I mean, Lankinen obviously intrigues because he's been the answer, I guess, in Vancouver. And you wonder what's going to happen with Demko. Like, are they going to buy him out? What is going to happen? That's kind of the question. And I mean, I like the Aiden Hill deal. You get the cup with him, and I think that's extremely reasonable. And I mean, I think there was, I don't know, maybe this is going to be one thing where like we watch with playing the long game when it comes to the cap rising and with goaltenders. And I want goaltenders to get their piece of the pie, but some of these contracts like are not really aging well. And now you're starting to see there's like an inflation with contracts at certain positions with the cap rising. And now you're kind of seeing the blowback from that, in my opinion, with guys like Aiden Hill and Lincoln. But it's not like they're at the caliber of Shesterkin or Jeremy Swayman, but still.
Shayna, you're our contracts girl. You're our money mind. Do you like these?
I mean, sure. The Lankinen deal I love for him personally. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
I
really
love it for
great.
him.
Yeah, because I think I couldn't believe that he was around in camp as long as he was before he was signed last year. Like he was really good in Nashville last season. It didn't make sense to me, and it felt like he could be like the Anthony Stolars of this summer had he reached free agency, where it's like a team recognizes how good he is and gets him like a pretty good contract to be a 1A or a 1B. So I have to wonder, like, do they not have faith in Demko's health? And at this point, who could blame them? It's a tough situation. Now you have security in net and it's great for Lankinen, but then you look at the long-term picture of the Canucks cap situation and also some of the clauses in this contract and you go, oh, okay, choices are made. Like not ideal. The Aiden Hill one, I think, really is in line with what we're seeing in the goalie market. And it's funny because now I'm seeing things like, oh, well, Igor Shesterkin set the goalie market. And it's like, no, 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 besties. Jeremy Swayman set the goalie market as a new number for starting goalies without a ton of experience. And I think we've seen it kind of everything fall into line around that, except for the Jake Ottinger deal, which I think is too team friendly and he should have pushed for way more. But I digress. But like the Joey Daccord contract, I feel like that's a good 1A without a ton of experience money. And I feel like for Aiden Hill, he's a 1A and he has a cup, so he's going to get a step above that, plus the inflation of the growing cap. It kind of all checks out for me. Like I don't have an issue with it. And I'm sure they'll find someone pretty inexpensive to play with him as a 1B.
We shall see. See how I rhymed? Did you see what I did there? That was,
It did.
anyway.
Nice.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Still whipping out the puns and the rhymes.
The bad ones. It's the illness speaking. All right. Let's pivot a little bit to something that I honestly keep forgetting that this is still a thing because it's been literally over 2 years. But Gabe Landeskog, who last played in the Stanley Cup final when Colorado won their cup, is apparently back out skating with the team. There's no promises, there's no commitment, but he's at practice. Sarah, probability of Gabe Landeskog playing this season?
I have no fucking idea. And I think the question should be, should he play this season? I think they're kind of stacked at this point and there's going to be tough decisions. But I know how the guys there talk about him. And I know that locker room presence would go a long way, even if you know the impact Stamkos had when he even only played one shift. So you look at something like that and it's like, okay, I guess let him play if he's ready.
Shayna, it's almost like He has to, right? Because this is a year where Colorado has literally rebuilt their goaltending tandem, traded away Mikko Rantanen. It would seemingly make sense that something this crazy would happen. What do you think about the news?
Oh my God, it's wild if he actually does return because I feel like every time we've seen him on the ice for practice and it's like, oh my God, could he return? You get excited, and then a day later it's like, no, pump the brakes. And now I'm like, okay, when are we pumping the brakes or do we get to stay excited? I'm a huge fan of Gabe Landeskog, what he brings to the lineup, the vibes, the everything, the energy. So I think it would be really great if he can play and be a middle six winger for them. I don't expect him to jump in. I'm sure he has a lot of rust. And I also feel like he seems like from me not knowing him at all, but from my vibes, um, like a player who wouldn't come back to the lineup unless he was truly, truly, truly ready. Like I don't see him coming back in and just being absolutely terrible and being okay with that. You know, it's like if he's not ready and he's not going to be an addition to this team, I don't think he would do that. So I have to think if he does return, sure, he'll be rusty, but like there's a readiness to it. And it's really interesting. But I also like it too. You think all the turnover and in Colorado, and there's been a ton this year, and you go, okay, how do you keep it settled? Especially when you move out Ranson and you're not just moving out supporting guys and like interchanging those pieces. This is a core guy. The return of Eric Johnson, I think, really does that. Like that is your glue guy in the locker room who is overly enthused to be there. He's saying he'll just shovel the ice, he doesn't care. And then the potential of Landeskog, like I feel like that's a really good way to like get this new look group together. And there's obviously like Coyle and Nelson, those are veteran guys, but still just to have different personalities and blend them in, like I think this will help.
It's going to be interesting. You look no farther than the Seattle Kraken and the return of their captain, Jordan Eberle, after 40 games away with an unprecedented pelvis injury. And now he's got 7 points in his last, I think, 4 games, including 6 assists, all of which are primary. So NBD. But here we are. All right, let's go to some more hardcore news. First, Sarah, Pittsburgh and Nashville are going to play in Stockholm next year. Do we care?
Um, what did Stockholm do wrong to deserve this?
I'll take that as a no. Shayna, do we care?
Yeah, like great for Phil Forsberg, but I'm just like, I know Raquel's Swedish. I just don't get it. I'm like, are you doing it because they played each other in the Stanley Cup final a million years ago? Like, where is the direction on this? It makes less sense. I feel like there's other teams that should have been picked here.
Also, like, who's to say if this is going to be objectively good hockey, right?
Well, come on.
I mean,
That's a stretch.
I'm just saying. All right, here's some stuff I think we do care about. The GM meetings have been happening in Florida because, of course, they have this week. And there's been some headlines. I'll share with you what I've kind of picked up coming out of them, and you guys can tell me if you want to talk about any of them. In a shocking turn of events, they've realized that the Four Nations face-off is far more compelling to fans and players than an all-star game. So they are rethinking what they might do out on the island before the Olympics next year, because originally they were slated to have an all-star game, and now, woo, they might need to capitalize on building the game a little differently. There is talk, just talk, of re-centralizing the draft. Gary Bettman says that he hopes to begin CBA discussions in April, and I fear saying this, but it might be a lockout-free discussion. And
Knock on wood.
confirmation, sorry, Shayna, no changes to the playoff ranking formula. Sarah, of those big headlines, which one jumps out?
Um, like avoiding a lockout, I think. I think that's great news.
Shayna, anything interest you?
Yeah, how about the All-Star game? Like, I look at that, it didn't make enough sense to me to have that in the Olympics in the same year because most of the players that are going to be up for the Olympics are going to, a lot of them are going to be in the All-Star tournament and the All-Star game, not tournament. Where's my brain? But
It
all
is a
we
tournament-ish. Sorry.
ish, whatever. But like all we hear is like the NHL won't expand 3-on-3 because of the wear and tear on players and this and that, and they're concerned. So why have them play both? Why not let people rest for a moment because you want your revenue from the All-Star game, right? It just feels wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with having an All-Star game every other year in between international play, whether World Cup of Hockey or the Olympics, right? I think that's a very good way to do it because people still do want to see like the skills competition. And I think it gives you a bigger gap between them to figure out
Do
what
they,
you can do.
though?
I don't know. I feel like that has I don't think the game itself matters at all, but I think the All-Star competition, like people want to know who has the hardest shot, who's the fastest skater. Like that's a way to do it and highlight the personalities. If you can do it right, go off, whatever. But like, why would you double stack them? Why? When everybody wants the season to start earlier and end earlier, and then you're like, let's expand the break. It makes literally no sense. And I know some of the players, it's like, well, if they're all in New York together and then they can fly out, you could do that. But it just, it's unnecessary. You're clustering things for no reason when you could space them out and honestly take the time to figure out how to make the All-Star game interesting in 2027 because you have a lot of work to do. As good as the last one was comparatively, Four Nations blew everything out of the water. You got to figure out something.
But here was my question. So are we basically saying that if you make the Olympic team, you're automatically an all-star and vice versa? Or are people going to be there who aren't? Do you see what I'm saying?
Do
Like,
you think like people are going to take off
because the point
from the
is they're
All-Star
all,
game?
yeah, they're all supposed to get to New York before they go to the Olympics.
Well,
So,
Connor McDavid, you're going to see him do both, and the Kachuk brothers are going to do both, and players like that. That I'm like, I would assume Pastrnak does both in Draisaitl. It's like,
right. But every team has to send someone. So, like, this
yeah,
is what I'm saying. It
yeah,
doesn't like,
it's just messy. It's too messy.
I think there needs to be, I think Gary is a classic lawyer, and I feel like he says a lot of things that aren't completely done yet. So I feel like we're gonna have to look for rollouts on this as they come because I don't understand like what they could possibly do here, but I'm sure they'll do something.
and Sarah, I'm surprised you didn't jump on re-centralizing the draft. I know you love the draft.
Well, what are you gonna do? Like, because I want to get drunk in Vegas, you have to have the draft. Kind of, yeah. Yeah, actually. I know that a lot of agents are kind of bartering for that too. So for me, I that's also a wait and see thing. I guess I'm just like so jaded on whatever Gary says. I'm like, I just have to wait till something actually happens.
Yeah.
Also, like, while I don't love the idea of the decentralized draft, like, why are you already shitting on it before it happens? Like, way to water down your own product. Like, I don't know, get people excited about watching it still in a different way. Like, I feel like it's already like, all right, we know the draft sucks, and now it's gonna suck worse.
Well, but
Like,
we did do it. The COVID year we had a decentralized draft.
yeah, but now they have like time, they have time to figure out how to do it and like take notes. Like the NFL seemed pretty successful last year. If they did it, it was in Detroit, I think, and they did like a lot of stuff for fans there, and it was like more interesting than the NHL did during like the COVID year, which was like
Yeah.
1,000 times more painful than usual. So it's like, all right, here's your chance, do something.
I just think it's lame. I don't
The
like it.
whole thing's lame. The
I
way
don't
the
like
draft
it.
is normally too, like I feel like everything is just like it is so long.
It was so NHL to have the best one ever in the sphere and everyone's like raving about it and then to be like, all right, never doing this again.
Well, they spent all their money. They can't do it again
Yeah.
this year because
Yeah.
they spent 3 years worth of money throwing that thing.
Yep.
And
There it is.
I want to know too, like how much the draft costs to put on and how much revenue they get for whether or not it's worth it. Because they're saying like the revenues are up this year, and it's like, is it because you don't have to pay for the draft? Like, is it not a cost-effective thing to do? Because if it's not, there's a good conversation to have. Like, would you rather rising salaries and things going this way versus that? Like,
Well, but
okay,
I
then I'm
think
interested.
that's the point is that the Sphere, a draft costs a lot
Yeah,
more than a draft where all you do is put up a stage and a video screen, right? So like,
yeah.
because
And
there's
then there's even the mess with like the awards. Like, are they going to be in the same city? They're not. Then it's this. Then it's that. And it's like, can you just get organized?
the awards are worse than the draft for real.
Yeah,
Like that you could
those are
make
torture.
virtual, honestly. Like just pull a Taylor Swift at the Billboard. What was it, the iHearts, and just do your video and be like
Yeah.
the.
I have no idea.
Did you see her necklace, Sarah?
Yeah, I said I was gonna say throw on the snake necklace, and that's like an Easter egg. Listen, I think I'm never gonna do math to do an Easter egg. Okay, I don't think Taylor is either. I don't think anything like on the 17th of the 7th, blah, blah, blah. None of that is an Easter egg. Explicitly wearing the snake necklace is an Easter egg in my eyes. So we'll see. But I've been clowning way too hard. So in my eyes, rep is never coming until it drops.
Shayna, do you have any clue what we're talking about?
The last thing Sarah said stuck with me. You're waiting for Reputation Taylor's version.
Yes. Wow. She's learning more and more every day.
Do you know what's really funny? Someone who lives in this house that is not me, like loves Taylor Swift now, does not love her music per se. Like he likes the music, but he's not in love with her for that. He likes Taylor Swift football fan. He's
Okay.
very,
Oh, he's in
very,
the minority then.
Yep.
yeah, he's like, all playoffs, like I'm rooting for Taylor. I was like, I'm gonna get you a shirt that says Taylor's version. Like I don't know where it came from, and every chance he got, he was
He
talking
needs
about
one of those
Taylor.
shirts that says, I just hope Taylor Swift has fun. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Yeah, like anything like that. They're showing her on screen. He's like, good. And maybe it's because he's heard so much whining, but he's like, so he's very into playoff Taylor. I'm like, okay. I don't know where this came from.
Only we can somehow be talking about the draft and then all of a sudden be talking about. See, they should just have Taylor Swift help plan the NHL draft, and then it would be fine. Then it would
That's
be
what's
fine.
happening.
I
Heard
mean,
it
look,
here first.
look,
That's where
there's a
she's
way to
releasing
do it.
reputation.
That's why she hasn't been
Like,
on social.
there you
Hmm.
go. No, but like you think about it, the celebrities they pick, it's like they always pick someone that's like not relevant too, and it's like so awkward. And then you have the Vegas draft and they have Celine Dion of all people be a part of it. And it's like, see, you're on to something.
Well, respectfully, though, that was not the league. That was the Habs.
Okay, well, let the Habs run things. Let Celine Dion run things, and then make sure I'm there this time because I was in one when I'm like at home seeing her come out. I'm like, I could. Why am I not there?
Yeah, but
Why? Why was
she was only there for like a second. We didn't
I don't
like
care. I
actually
want to
see
be in
her.
her
If it
atmosphere.
helps the sphere, yes, you want to be in her presence, in her atmosphere. It felt like rarefied air, but at the same time, you couldn't see anything in the actual sphere. So,
Correct. Correct. Yeah, like we were off back in a little corner, like in a hole, like where we couldn't see any. Because
yeah,
like I
yeah,
swear the floor slopes, right? So like
yeah. I
we
was
were
like
even
tripping
lower.
out.
Yeah, it was not. Mm, 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 mm. All
It
right,
was
here we are. Okay.
Here we are.
Anything else about the GM meetings?
No, they should do one draft and please do it somewhere in the East so like my fucking terrible luck cannot crush my dreams.
They
Like they
did
need
it
to
in the
do it somewhere
East in
near me.
Nashville, and you still couldn't get there.
More East. I need more East than that. That was I don't that was not fun for me, okay?
I
I can't even
know.
explain that. How I'm desperate to rent a car and calculating can I drive this by myself right now? And I couldn't even get a car because there were none.
It'll be okay.
I need it closer. To do Boston. Do
you couldn't get
Philly.
a car because your we age said you were under 25.
As we and you know what the best is we were when we were waiting at one point and we were at the bar, Rich took out his Switch and they were playing Wii Golf because we were there for so long. That the two of them are just playing golf standing there.
No.
All right, so we need to re-centralize the draft just so Shayna can get back to one. That's what we all agree on,
Yeah.
right?
Don't
That's
central
we went through this
re-Easternize the
whole
draft.
journey. Re-Shayna-ize the draft, right? So
Just give me one.
which one of you posted the picture of the three of us? And someone I saw commented on Instagram like, "Oh, you guys get together all the time." I'm like, "That's like 4 years ago."
I think it was me.
No.
I think it was me for like Women's Day. 'Cause I'm like, oh, I'll
Oh,
post a
that's right.
picture of
No.
us.
That's right.
We have like two pictures together, and then you guys can Photoshop me into the Vegas one,
Yeah,
Yes. You're going to
yeah.
be in the drink.
please.
Sarah, we tell everyone to get that drink at the Chandelier
I
Bar
know the
now.
special drink that's
Yeah.
spicy.
So good. Okay. Okay. I think we've run out of Bitso news. Let's get on to the hockey talk, as they like to say. You want to start in the East or the West, Sarah? You tell me.
Let's start in the West.
All right, let's start in the West. Let's talk first about the Avs. They are on a tear, even without Gabe Landeskog, 8-1-1 in the last 10. Again, I talked about how they've just done crazy stuff that usually if you said a team was going to do in a year they wanted to be a contender, no one would believe you. What do you make of the Avs right now?
Just perfect execution of finding a need, identifying a need, and actually going out and seeking it. I mean, from the start of the season, they didn't let the drama fester up like some teams, many teams this year. You just got such a clear picture of what was the good idea. And I know that it's long been rumored or reported that the Avalanche are working with an internal cap. So it's like the internal cap, and they're still running circles around certain teams that like the sky's the limit for them. And it makes you wonder, but obviously they got the goaltending and that worked out. They got several options that they needed to shore up at center, and they're just looking great.
Avs sit at third in the Central, Shayna. A lot of fight. We'll get to this in a second for the final wild card spot. But do you think the Avs are going to be able to change their positioning at all, or are they locked in? Because ahead of them, at least in the Central, are the Dallas Stars, who are still without Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if they jump over the Stars, but I think that's the most like those teams are locked at 2 and 3. The Wild have too many injuries to really like, and they had a couple slides where it kind of took them out of that they I feel like they're locked in a wild card spot. So unfortunately, like we are getting round one Stars Avs and Wall sick, love that. Can't wait to watch it. Give me 7 games of it after Sunday. That should not be round one at all. I'm very upset by it because to me, like the Avs are legitimately one of the best teams in the league, and the Stars are obviously right there. And the fact that it's like you guys should be like round 2 or 3, it's very upsetting. And do you spend all that for what? To go home in round one potentially?
Oh,
I agree. I agree. If you had to pick right now, Sarah, Stars or Avs, straight talent, not vibes, coming out of that series.
all right. Well, you know what?
Tell me.
Avs. Nathan fucking McKinnon, Kale fucking McCarr, um, other friends we made along the way. Natchez has been itching for this. I've watched this guy play since he was in the AHL, and I interviewed him, and he's like, "I want to be a center." Like, I love his attitude. He always knew he was good, and somebody needed to believe in him. And Ottinger, it's determined by if he's gonna. I love what the Stars do collectively overall, but this is actually such a tough call. This is one of the toughest calls ever. I wouldn't get mad at anyone for saying Stars. Jason Robertson has picked it up, but that's not my king. Okay.
Shayna, who do you pick? Pure
I'm
talent, no vibes.
I'm sticking with the Avs. Going into the season, my projected final was Lightning Avs, and I'm not letting that one go. Um, I love what they did at the deadline. I really, really, really do. And I love what both teams did at the deadline, right? Like I feel like the Avs, like you guys were saying, have such a knack for knowing this is our weakness. This is how we're gonna fix it. And they didn't go like low key on the options, and they stopped other people from getting players that would have helped them in the division, right? The Jets could have gotten either Coyle or Nelson. The Avs are like, now we're taking both. Like they are sick. And with the Stars, I'm actually worried. Can they win without Miro Heiskanen? You're hearing that being questioned now, and it's like, well, depending on who you replace him with, right? Like Thomas Harley playing more meaningful minutes, never a bad thing, but Cece playing more minutes is a bad thing. Labushkin, Brendan Smith, like I'm worried about that. They're like bottom four defensemen. You see how exposed they are. I think they'd be exposed in any playoff series, but I think especially against the Avs, having Dumba Smith, Labushkin, or Cece have to match up to Nathan McKinnon on line one or Brock Nelson and Nichushkin on line two. I don't see it. If you separate Natchez and McKinnon and spread out that speed, like I can't see that blue line managing at all without Heiskanen.
Oh, the stress. If that is going to be the round one matchup, and it stresses me out. All right, let's look at the other round one presumed matchup in the West before we get to the wild card conversation. Folks, Oilers Kings, are we so back? Is it happening again, Sarah?
I fear it is, and I fear the Kings don't care. They've given up. They don't do anything to try to beat the Oilers, at least how I perceive it. So looks like we're running this back, and nobody cares.
It's like Chef Ramsay, like when he's yelling at people, like, have you given up? And that's Sarah going up to Rob Blake, screaming at him.
It should be Drew Doughty. He's playing half the game at 40. Like, you can't help him.
And it sucks too, because like I like this Kings team, not in that matchup, right? Like I feel like they're legitimately good, and Kemp Fiala is playing well, and like Kempe and Kopitar, like you have something there, and Byfield is crushing it. He's emerging into the star we all knew he could be, and he's doing it at center, right? Like they have three deep lines, and I still look at it and go, but the Oilers, as flawed as they are, but the Oilers, and I literally that first time they matched up against each other, I was like, maybe the Kings are gonna play, like upset them. And then after the first time, the second year, it's like, oh, maybe. I'm like, no. And the third year, like, definitely not. Now it's year four, and the Kings are like, we're not gonna do anything that different. No, I'm sorry.
I
Yeah,
like
we're in the
I
same
honestly am
page
not
here.
even going to watch, I don't think, because it's and I'm Edmonton finally came back to life last night after appearing to be dead for way
Their
too
most
long.
balanced lineup they have done in how long? Jeff Skinner, top line minutes. Like, let's go. Let's get everyone slotted appropriately and let's figure it out.
And that's what he did. And
All
Drysdale
right.
doesn't even score. Like it's always hilarious when it's 7 something and like the guy doesn't do it.
A hundred
Yeah.
percent. 100%. All right. So we think we know we have two set first round matchups in the West. What we don't know is who's going to get the last wild card spot. I feel like we're like in Willy Wonka and the last golden ticket. Who's it going to be? We have Veruca Salt in the Vancouver Canucks, who with 68 games played technically sit in the second wild card spot with 75 standings points. However, nipping at their heels with 69 games played and 75 points, but more regulation wins are the St. Louis Blues. And then behind them with 67 games played, so the most of a takeoff ramp to take advantage of are the Calgary Flames, just 2 points behind. They only have 31 regulation wins. And I guess we kind of have to mention Utah with 71 points, 68 games played. They have 30 regulation wins. They seem to be the longest shot for me. Utah does. Vancouver, St. Louis, Calgary. Which of our least favorite children make it into that final playoff spot, Sarah?
Early FMK.
Fuck, I screwed up. Here we are.
No, we can
Oh,
do the East as the FMK. We can make this an
okay.
FMK. We can
Okay.
double it.
Okay.
So what are the teams again? Vancouver.
Vancouver, St. Louis, Calgary.
We're
One
doing two
has to make
FMKs
it.
or just like one?
Yeah, which one is going to make it? Just which one?
Vancouver. I don't like it, but I think they have such an advantage in points that the other two are going to be like fighting amongst each other and not be able to catch up.
Okay, Shayna, EP40 is apparently having his brain reprogrammed. Quinn
Oh,
Hughes
geez.
is playing on 40% of who knows what. Which of these three teams is your pick to take the final wild card spot?
I have beef with Rick Tocchet over this Elias Pettersson stuff. When you have a player like that, stop trying to change them. Just maximize them at what they are. I cannot stand it.
But what is he? He hasn't been doing anything all year.
I know. He looks good the last few nights finally, but I don't know. I don't know. It's they're so messy that I feel like they shouldn't make it for their messiness, but I feel like Quinn Hughes is going to will them into it. And I mean, he was outstanding yesterday again. Like every time he's in the lineup, he is a game breaker. I think as good as Dustin Wolf is, I don't think the Flames have a shot. Utah, I can't even speak about. I'm so mad at them because they were my surprise pick in the
Okay.
beginning of the year, and I was all about them. The Blues are the one that is interesting though, because you do look at them at 5-on-5, and they have been really, really, really good at 5-on-5 since Four Nations. They're one of the best 5-on-5 teams in the league. Utah's right there too, surprisingly, but they don't have the results that the Blues do. It's just like their special teams are so bad, and the goaltending still worries me. As fine as it's been, that I would have to go Vancouver begrudgingly, but I do think it would be kind of funny if they fulfilled your prediction after this year. I feel like I look at two teams like the Rangers and Canucks. I'm like, you are the two most disappointing teams in the league. That should be the Leafs spot to hold. You're the Oilers, and you two are taking the cake and being the problem children. You don't deserve the playoffs.
This is my thing, and I have said this on Vancouver radio. Like, even if you make it in the playoffs, do you want to be the Washington Capitals of last year? Like, you've traded away half your core. Brock Besser's pissed. He's not playing well. Well, he hasn't been playing well. Like, but I mean, all the Vancouver people say the revenue is what matters, regardless of how they perform. But like, come on, like
And
seriously.
it's discouraging too, in a sense, like how they approach the deadline if they make it versus like, listen, you're not going to hear me hype up the Blues management very often, but I liked what they did last summer. I liked the offer sheets, right? Like they went for it and went, these are the players in the right age range. And even Cam Fowler's been really good there. And I was wrong on that. I was like, great, you're getting another aging defenseman. That's going to burn you. And it didn't. Like, I like how their top six is playing. And I think they made the coaching change at the right time. You don't often see like a team just go, there's a better coach available. We're going for it. And if that's the attitude you're going to have, that you're just going to take risks, I rather that than whatever the fuck the Canucks just did at the deadline.
I know. And this is like, I think fewer teams should be in the playoffs. And I know we do it for the
Ooh,
revenue, whatever, but it's like,
spicy.
it just all goes back to what I genuinely believe about that because there's some teams you don't deserve it, Vancouver, you don't deserve it, New York. Like you shouldn't be able to sabotage your own roster and get into the playoffs.
So you would just have straight fewer teams. That's your position. Or
Yeah,
would you do like
maybe.
play-ins or anything?
Yeah, yeah. You gotta want it. We need one shot on goal from EP
Just the one.
for your admission.
A
Yeah.
slice of rice. Well, this isn't okay. Shayna, do you like half the, because it is true at the end of the day, people are like, oh, half the league makes the playoffs. Do you like it philosophically when we're in a situation like, because I would suggest the battle on the East makes me say yes, but the battle on the West makes me say no.
I'm fine with it, but I like that it's 8 teams and 8 teams. I'm not a play-in tournament person. You're not
Okay.
gonna like if I have to have more teams, I'm like, cool, just expand the wild card to 4 teams, let them battle it out in a best of 3. But I don't think you can do that till you expand the league, right? Like if you're at 34 teams and you want to expand, then sure. But until then, I'm like, I feel like 8 teams is fine. But it's the way that the playoff structure is that discourages me because it's fucked up that a team like Vancouver or Minnesota, like imagine they upset somehow. And I'm not saying they wouldn't deserve to move on, but then one of Dallas or Colorado isn't. It feels wrong to me. And I look at it too, like, give me a 3-2-1 point system. Like I want teams to be playing differently and taking risks that if the playoffs are on the line, those 2 points from an overtime win are not enough. I want to see you pulling your goalie with 8 minutes left and doing something radical to like earn that fucking win and work harder for those 3 points. Then I'll be sold on 8 and 8. Like I'll be happy. But I feel like I need more. And I'm not getting it. We're left with these mediocre wildcard races every year because the rest of the playoffs, you can't change it that much because 3 teams from each division have to make it.
Did you see, and ironically, this is the team that doesn't have to take the risks, but did you see that Winnipeg tried it again in Seattle? They pulled their goaltender at the end of the second period
Like, why not? Go for it.
with like
Fuck it.
whatever it was. Yeah, and I mean, they didn't score. They did score when they played Minnesota and did it obviously back in October. But I'm like, this is fantastic. And like
They
Winnipeg doesn't
would
Yeah.
even have to care.
they wouldn't have scored if they didn't do it.
Right.
So how about
Yeah.
that one?
And even like
Exactly.
look at last year, Minnesota needed the points. What was it? It was a game against Nashville, so they pulled their goalie in overtime, knowing
Oh,
they
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
get the
yeah.
point. I love that. Go for it. Like they had these like radical strategies numerous times in one season going, we're gonna go for it. They're one of the teams that, if I remember it the year before, they were one of the better 6-on-5 teams in the league too. So they knew they could come back in games and try things. Just go for it. That's why everyone will talk shit about like Patrick Roy when it's like the Islanders are out of these games and he's pulling his goalie with 7 minutes to go. We were hyping it up when he did it with Colorado. If you want to make the argument they should be practicing those situations more so they're more prepared and they look better in them, I hear you because that team like definitely needs the work. But why not try anything to win a game? Show me you give a shit. No one's questioning if Patrick Roy gives a shit to win a game. Like, isn't that good? Isn't that a good thing at the end of the day?
We should be like figure skating and award style points.
I love
Like you
that.
get difficulty points for what you do
I'm a
in a game.
fan. Wow, we're cooking up some rules over here. We should be at these meetings.
We should be
Honestly,
the GM of the GMs.
they need help. They
Putting the
need different
TMM in
voices.
GM. This is
Ooh.
2025.
Oh
There it
yeah.
is. New
There we
branding
go.
idea, Shayna. All right. We wanted to discuss one of the teams in the East as well, and that is arguably, I'm going to say it, the second most surprising team in the East because we still are talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets trying to stay in it, but it is the Montreal Canadiens who, in their last 10 games, have a 7-1-2 record. They currently hold the second wild card spot with just 67 games played, which is the lowest total among with many other teams in the East on the eastern side of the league. Sara, are the Habs for real?
Yes. Oh, wow. That game last night was so fun. Of course, the 6 game winning streak from Ottawa needed to end. And it was kind of, I got happy for everybody because they have banked enough points to afford a loss. I mean, they could have, the extra point would have been good. But then in like the last second, what was it? Anderson with 2 goals. It was great to watch. They are never say die. And that's what's great about a playoff bubble race like this. Wayne Hudson is just otherworldly. He's so fun to watch. Caulfield's having an electric season, and Suzuki's really stepping up as a leader. And I mean, even the goaltending has had its decent moments, but that will There've been some non-decent moments too, so that will ultimately determine what happens. But I think they deserve to be where they are right now.
Shayna, I'll ask you the same question. And secondary point to that, is this the right time for them to be peaking, or should they be cooking a little bit more?
No, this is the right time because I think we're looking at this like Eastern Conference playoff race, and maybe a couple days ago, it's like, okay, wait, maybe the teams are going to trend up and play in the right direction, right? Like the Rangers looked capable for a bit, and the Red Wings finally had won and broke through after they beat the Sabres, and you're like, maybe they're onto something. Like this potential, you're like, okay, maybe the teams are going to get it together and start playing well, and then everyone else kind of falls apart, and the Canadians are taking advantage of it. So I love that for them. It's so exciting, and I think like I'm someone who likes to look ahead at the schedule. Like I like to go through the week of games and kind of highlight like these are the games to watch because I might plan to write something around that or just like you want to keep tabs on it. And that was the game like circled on the calendar last week. And it lived up to the hype and more. And it was really exciting because you're not just doing this against a bad team. Like the Senators have been good. They're solidifying their spot in the playoff race. We're even to the point where we're looking at them like, could they jump up into the Atlantic and threaten the Leafs? Like this is really interesting. And then here you go, the Habs actually helped the Leafs. And I think it's this fun narrative at the same time. But like with last night's game, I feel like a lot of their success, it's like they're big guns, right? It's the top line of Slavkovsky, Suzuki, and Caulfield. They're absolutely crushing it. It's Lane Hudson on the back end. And Sam Montembeau, I think he has like 9 straight quality starts now in his last 9 starts. So you're getting the pieces you need, but then you have Gallagher playing a great game and Anderson. So I think with the top guys leading the way, if that secondary group can pick it up behind them, all of a sudden you're like, okay, now you're going to have traction down the stretch at the right time. But if you look ahead at their schedule, the second to last week of the season, I think it is, they have back-to-back games against the Leafs and the Senators.
Ooh,
And if they can clinch their playoff spot, then
that'd be
like that to
wild.
me would be perfection, absolute perfection. Like I'm manifesting all of this. Like even if the Leafs go up to number one in the Atlantic and you get Montreal versus them in round one, where somehow
Oh,
there's a closer path to Ottawa versus Toronto, like please give me that.
that'd be so fun.
And to be clear, I put this out on Twitter, but there was 806 theories as to how Seattle came up with their play to beat Montreal in overtime, and it had nothing to do with Lane Hudson being the matchup or anything like that. So it was simply the fact that they lined up all three across the line and no one was back, and so that's why Monty jumped. But a lot of hours were spent on theories that were actually wrong. I told Brandon Montour, I'm like, there's a lot of theories out there. He's like, oh, of course there are. I
Of
was like,
course.
and I was like, Stevie told me it was this. Is it that simple? He's like, yeah, it's that simple. So, all right.
I
Well, that,
love that. Wait, first of all,
yes.
I sometimes when I'm in a locker room and reporters are asking the most like convoluted question in the world, I remember I sat down with Brett Pesci one day and was just like, I have to ask, we talk so much about the fucking systems. Like, what is that? How different are they everywhere? And he's like, I'm so glad you asked that because it's really like not that different from team to team. And people come in and ask, and it's just like they think they're trying to outsmart us or something, where it's like, why don't you just ask what the system is? But anyway, I
Literally.
digress.
No, no, no. It's so like I remember too when I when I wrote on the forecheck the Blue Jackets used to beat Tampa Bay when they swept them. Like there were people in the comments like, "How can you be writing this? You're giving away their secrets." And people in the comments were like, "Bro, there's a thing called scouting, and like this forecheck has been around for like forever." So it's not like
Yeah, you're not writing something a team probably like the Tampa Bay Lightning don't know and aren't studying for days and days and days and days. Like, but
Half
I
of
feel
these
like
guys
you
have
say
been on
this.
the same teams.
yeah, well, like I think it was I can't remember who it was. Was it Sergachev or something? Was literally I had a quote of him in the article saying they're using the 1-2-2. Like they knew what they were doing. It's not
No, no, no. They don't. They have no idea. Everyone, it's so funny. Like, whenever you talk about anything, like if you want to be not even like be lazy, but it's just like you're like, yeah, yeah, it's the system, and everyone's like, yeah, the system. Yeah, it's the system. Like, we don't talk about the system or whatever. And I love when occasionally it's like instead of blaming the system, it's like, can someone just explain to me what this is? Because like fans might not know it, but it's like that's something I feel like there's this that's the one gap I feel like that sometimes needs to be like bridged a little bit. And it's as simple as just asking player or coach to under like explain it and they'll do it and then you
right.
can explain it. Because it's like for us it might be harder to do it in our own words versus like the team because like how they run it specifically and what. But it's always so funny to me. It's like, oh, it's the system. You can just end it there. You're like, yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, so and we love our good friend Jeff Merrick, but he had what's his face on to discuss like the strategy behind that overtime goal, and they had like 18 theories. I had like multiple people coming up to being like, "Did you hear Merrick? Because they said it was this and this and this and this." And so I literally first went to Chandler Stevenson. I'm like, because Brandon Montour said post game to Piper, said it was Stevie's idea that we executed it the way we did, basically more or less. And so I was like, "So Stevie, what was the idea?" He's like, they lined up across the line. They didn't have someone back. And I'm like, so you basically let them win the faceoff? He's like, yeah. And I was like, and Monty jumped. He goes, yeah, and he told me to stay back because he jumped, so we would need defensive coverage back. I'm like, good talk. Like that, it was like it was none of these other like 18 convoluted things, but it worked. So
We
hey,
make hockey more challenging than it is sometimes. Like, not to be like, it's a
Yes.
simple game, because I know, like, if you don't know it, it's not. But sometimes it's like, keep it simple, stupid.
well, and you know what it is? Okay, little tiny bit philosophical for a second. It is simple, but it's super complicated because you have to process all these simple things 100 times a second because
Yeah.
it's changing so rapidly. So it's not calculus, right? But it's just you just have to be that's why they say hockey IQ is so important. And thus I digress. Okay, anyway, we've gone down way too many rabbit holes on this. We'll see what Montreal can do, but we will stay in the East for our end of the episode, as we always do with everyone's favorite game, except for Stevens, and that is Fuck, Mary Kill. Sarah, we are going to fuck, Mary Kill the wild card race in the East. Here are your choices: the Rangers, the Blue Jackets, and the Habs. Go.
I'm killing the Rangers after last night's game, but it just is the ailments that they've had to deal with all season. It's like it's another team I'd be most annoyed if they get in because you just watch the turnovers, you watch the lack of cohesiveness of the team. They aren't connecting. It's not like good hockey being played, and it just is like pissing me off. And they banked their points from uh, in between the messes, but the messes are so big that it's like it's hard for me to. They're not going to go anywhere. Okay, I am going to kill the Habs. Like the thing is,
You
they've
killed
got
the
so.
Rangers.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to kill them both because I want the Blue Jackets to win. I want to. Okay, I'll fuck the Habs. I don't have to even kill them. I like watching them. I think they'd be a more entertaining team in the playoffs, but I think they have a lot more years of doing this, and they've got a good foundation here. And it's like no harm, no foul if they don't make it in. I'm gonna marry the Blue Jackets. I just don't. They got most of their rest of their games are at home. They've got one of the easiest schedules among the teams fighting for a spot right now, and they've had such good and consistent offense that you don't want to see them blow it right now. And if they just get back on track after all these games lost, then they're in a position to get that wild card spot.
Shayna.
I'm gonna kill the Rangers. Last night was not their worst game of the season. There have been bad games like this all year. That team is not ready. And it's okay because like they sold on players for good reason. I think um like I've been having this debate here on like from a diehard fan I live with of do you want to see the Rangers make the playoffs or just be done with this horrible season? And he is steadfast on wanting the playoffs still. And it's like, okay, that's nice and wonderful. But then you watch games like that and they're literally toying with you and being like, no, we suck. So you don't deserve it. Sorry, guys. They have like the in on paper elite players to push them into it versus some of the other teams in the mix, and they have like the priors from the last few years, but it's just not good enough. Um, I'll fuck the Blue Jackets because like it's a great story. It was really fun. We all loved it, but it hasn't worked out that well. Like lately. You got to score more goals. But I think once they get Rizikins back, because he missed a couple games, and Sean Monahan should be back soon, then it's like there's still a chance. And I think that's exciting. I'd like to see them have that chance. I will marry the Habs. I feel like they're getting hot at the right time. I think it's so interesting. And for them, like the Blue Jackets, it's not like the end of the world if they don't make it. It's just a stepping stone. It's a good sign, like, hey, you're on the right track, and now these players are going to get experience playing meaningful hockey. I love that for them. I think it's really interesting because I feel like in the beginning of the year, we were hearing people talk too, like, should Marty St. Louis get fired because of their
Right.
defense? And I was like, are we serious here? Like, this team is up and coming. And I think it'd be really really something if they make the playoffs before Detroit and Buffalo do.
Can you imagine? My God. All right. I'm going to own my vibes call here, but I'm going to agree with Sarah. I'm going to kill the Rangers because, again, like you said, they've sold off everything. Like, they don't deserve it. They're the Canucks of the East, and they don't deserve it. Although they're playing Saturday, is that right? Canucks and Rangers
Yeah,
early.
1 o'clock.
Sick.
Yep.
Can't wait for that. Okay. I'm going to fuck Montreal because body of work, it's not enough. Like, they've gotten hot lately, right? But like, they haven't been a team all season where we're like, oh, this is a good team, and they're just looking to put it together. Like, as you said, we were kind of shitting on them a lot of this season, so they weren't consistently good enough for me to think like that they should be in a spot yet. And then again, owning my vibes, I'm going to marry the Blue Jackets. Merzlikins was away were for his wife to have their second child, so he is back now on the ice.
Yeah.
You've got Sean Monahan, like you said, and Gabranson both practicing with the team finally. And I like they're below league average shooting percentage right now while they're like shooting lights out. So if they can just find a way to put it together, it would just be a perfect little bow on the story. And we need to amplify what a good year Zach Werenski has been having. So do you know no defender in the league has more rush chances this year than Zach Werenski? Not even Cale Makar.
I believe it. I
Oh,
believe it. He's having
I'm,
a monster season.
So there
yeah,
you go.
I'm hoping the Blue Jackets can stop losing because I want to be working on a story with someone on this. I'm very excited. I've never got to work with Aaron Portzline before.
Oh
Oh,
my
And
God.
I would really, really like, we were talking about like award stuff, and he's like, Allison's heard this rant
oh
and
yeah.
some of his feelings on it. So like, can the Blue Jackets get back on track? I want to do this.
Yes. And for those of you who've been following along on the journey of the Blue Jackets, I'll just share one more little tidbit launched today on Instagram. The wives of John and Matthew Gaudreau have launched a foundation. You can find them on Instagram at John and Maddie Foundation and follow all the work they are doing there. That's pretty, pretty cool. All right. I think we've done it, my friends. Here we are, another week, another episode. We remind you that when we're not engaging with you on our delightful happy pod, you can connect with us on social. We are at 2_much_man on YouTube and on Instagram and on Twitter. On BlueSky, you just replace those underscores with hyphens. We do have merch. I'll put the link in our show notes. It's at Teespring, but it may not be for long because the delivery times are out of control. We apologize. We are actively working behind the scenes to get that resolved, and we'll keep you posted. And until then, no matter where you are or what you're doing, we ask that you try to do something, no matter how big or small, to make sure that hockey truly is for everyone. We will talk to you soon.
Love you.
Bye.